Welcome, everyone, to this webinar brought to you by the Israel Defense and Security Forum, IDSF. In Hebrew, our name is Abitchonistim. IDSF is a movement of reserve officers and operators from all branches of the Israel Defense Establishment who believe that strong national security priorities and staunch Zionism are necessary for Israel to be the eternal homeland of the Jewish people. Thank you to all of our viewers and supporters for tuning into these war briefings. It is very important to us at the IDSF that we can share with you these war updates and analysis about the war here in Israel, and that we can connect our experts with you in these very direct and candid briefings. We are, of course, joined right now by Brigadier General Amir Avivi, the founder and chairman of IDSF, who will begin with a brief update on what's happening in the war, and then we're going to try to go to as many questions as we can. Over the week, many questions have come in that we have not yet been able to address. We'll try to do some of those right now. Please, General.
Thank you, Moshe. You see me with the coat in Jerusalem. Winter is coming, literally. Winter is here in Israel. And at the moment, because we are in a ceasefire, there's not much to update about war, but I think there is a big drama and we have to really follow up on what's going on. What's happening is that the moment Hamas is saying they are willing, they want to extend the ceasefire for a few days more and gain more time. Of course, each day we get 10 hostages, so this is pretty meaningful. But at the same time, there is more and more talks because I think that nothing is dramatically changing in our motivation to continue the war. They're formulating a deal that says we'll give all the hostages back, and we want a ceasefire. That's it. We want a ceasefire, and this is something that we must not accept. And unfortunately, I see people in Israel that say, yes, the top priority of the war is bringing back the hostages. And I think that definitely it's one of the goals of the war. It's not the top goal. The top goal is winning the war and eradicating Hamas. And by that also creating the terms for a much safer Israel and our place in this tough region and in the world. I think that if we stop the war and Hamas stays standing, this will be an existential threat for the whole state and for all the Jewish world. And so all of us, I think we need to really, really be proactive now in sending a clear message to the government of Israel, to the cabinet, and also, by the way, to the administration. Stopping the war is not an option. We need to stick to the goal of war and eradicate Hamas. If we don't do that, we lost. And this will have terrible repercussions all over. Palestinians in Judean and Samaria, Israeli Arabs, Hezbollah, Iran, they will all be all over us. And of course, the citizens in the south were murdered for nothing. We were going back to the same reality we were before, with Hamas in 1 year building itself back to what it was. It's not an option, for me at least. And Prime Minister Netanyahu, just a few minutes ago, I saw an alert in Israel Hayom. He's saying, no, we are sticking to the goals. We are going to destroy Hamas, and this is the right thing to say. But there are forces, first and foremost, our enemies, that want to create like a dilemma, big dilemma, and a discussion in Israel and in the Jewish world, saying, look, we gave you a chance to get all the hostages and stop the war. You didn't take it. So I think this is a very defining moment talking about leadership, talking about understanding really what is looking at the overall interests of Israel and the Jewish people, which are much, much bigger than the issue of the hostages. And I want to remind everybody that even if we don't get all the hostages and we go to a ground incursion, we are going after our people. We are going to take over an area where they are there, and we are going to get them. It's not that we're giving up on hostages. So basically, the way I see it, in the coming days, we'll try to release as many hostages as possible. There will be a moment, if we don't accept, and we shouldn't accept, the overall deal of stopping the war for getting all of them, that Hamas will say, that's it. We're not releasing any more hostages. And at this time, we need to basically go back to war and eradicate Hamas. I want to give you guys time to ask questions now. Moshe has prepared a very interesting interview, which is going to show you afterwards. So please, Moshe, let's discuss questions.
A number of people have asked about the military supplies of the IDF. Is the IDF all stocked up now? And also, has the US been providing supplies to the IDF?
So the IDF is supplying itself all the time. There are ships on the way to Israel. There are airplanes landing in Israel. We have more than 700 industries in Israel that are fully devoted to supply the army. And this is growing and growing. And also all our military industries are working 24/7 to supply the army. Of course, the fact that we stopped for a few days gives time to the army to resupply, and we're making good use of this time. And I think that every day that goes by, our ability to produce, the production and everything is growing. And meanwhile, of course, we are bringing equipment and munitions, not only from the US, a lot from the US, but also from all around the world.
President Biden's influence in this war, is it undermining what the IDF needs to accomplish, or is it in line?
I think that we have overall the blessing of the president to destroy Hamas. This is very important. I mean, this hasn't changed. I think that the US, the administration understands that Hamas needs to be destroyed. There is all the time issues talking about the humanitarian situation in Gaza. We have to remember that the US is entering elections year, and there are many voters of Biden that are very unhappy with what's going on in Gaza. And politically, I think the president needs to talk to his audience, try to balance, show that he cares about Palestinians. And I think that many of the things he says, it's more for election purposes. But overall, I think we have big support, which helps us a lot to continue the war.
What are your thoughts of the Mossad chief being in Qatar discussing the war with Hamas?
So the Mossad chief was sent by the prime minister to negotiate the hostage release. And this is what he's doing. This is what he's focusing on. At the same time, the Mossad got the mission to kill all Hamas leadership, which is outside Israel. And I believe that the Mossad will carry out this order to really reach every single Hamas leader and kill them.
Well, here in Israel, we're focused on this war in Gaza. There are media outlets around the world that are somehow deciding to talk about settler violence, as they call it, in Judea and Samaria. Any thoughts you can share on that?
I think that this campaign has been going on for more than 2 years. It's a very well-financed campaign with a lot of thought behind that. There is no such thing as settlers' violence. There are Israelis living in Judea and Samaria, and like any Israelis anywhere in Israel, there is a small fraction that sometimes doesn't act according to the law. By the way, we found out in our survey in IDSF that in Tel Aviv, for example, there is 2.5 times more violence than in Judea and Samaria. So we're not saying that there is Tel Aviv violence, but we are saying settlers. And I think it's terrible. It's terrible because many of these settlers are now in uniform, fighting for Israel, and really risking their lives for the state of Israel. And we have to say that this is really disgraceful.
The UN peacekeeping force on Israel's northern border, what are they doing? Are they keeping the peace up there?
UNIFIL is not fulfilling its mission. The mission was to implement Resolution 1701 that was passed in the UN Security Council in 2006 following the Second Lebanese War. The resolution says that all Hezbollah need to move from the south of Lebanon north of the Litani. Never happened. Not only that, since 2006, more and more Hezbollah forces and Aziz concentrated in South Lebanon, and they are building their infrastructure and capabilities few meters from UNIFIL positions. So this really reality is problematic, and it needs to change. And we need to convey a very clear say to the UN. We have two options: or there will be a war, and we'll have to destroy these forces in South Lebanon, or implement the resolution, and then we can all save another war. There should be an interest in the international community to prevent war, and I hope the motivation will be founded to really implement this resolution.
Unless all of the hostages are miraculously released in the next day or so, the point will come where Israel needs to return to the war. Is Israel willing and ready, and should they destroy Hamas if it comes at the cost of having to give up on the remaining hostages?
We're not going to give up on any hostage. We can destroy Hamas, and while doing that, try to reach the places where they are. We have to remember that when we maneuver and conquer areas, this brings intelligence. We arrest people, we question people, they talk between each other. They may be, if we get close to a place where there are hostages, they might want to move them, and we'll get information about that. So it's all connected. And if the hostages are all in Gaza, eventually we'll control the whole Gaza Strip. We'll find them. The only question is, we'll be able to save them alive and not have them killed, like we saw when we arrived to Shifa and there was a hostage in Shifa. The Hamas killed the hostage and ran away. So obviously, trying to release militarily hostages has its risks. But we need to see the big picture. We need to see the overall picture. The overall picture is that we need to destroy Hamas if we want to exist. At the same time, we'll do everything within our hands to release hostages.
The Saudi peace deal, is that still on the table, or are there any rumors that it's off because of this whole war?
I think it's very much on the table, and the Saudis are saying that. And I think that in order to implement it, there needs to be a decisive win. When we will win in Gaza, there will be a big motivation in the Sunni moderate world to do peace with Israel, to build an alliance between the West, Israel, and the Sunni world to confront Iran and all of its proxies, which endanger not only Israel, but endanger also the Sunni states.
Thank you again to everyone for sending in your questions. They're coming in so fast, it's almost impossible to read them because they keep flying off the screen. The next question is with regards to Hezbollah. Any change in the orientation of Hezbollah during the ceasefire?
Hezbollah is basically saying, as long as there is ceasefire, we'll be in ceasefire as well. They want what Hamas wants. They want the war to end. They want Hamas to exist. So they are participating in this ceasefire to get Israel to fall asleep, to get the world to pressure us to continue the ceasefire. They are playing along. The moment the war will be renewed, they also will renew their shooting. And when we'll start maneuvering in the south and it will be clear that we are on our way to destroy Hamas, this will be the moment Hezbollah will have to decide, are they in or out? Are they going all out and there will be a full-scale war with Hezbollah, or they will let us destroy Hamas and then wait and see what we do next. And what we do next might be destroying them, but they don't know. They have to guess what we are going to do because the government hasn't set any goal of war for the North, only for Gaza. So we don't know.
You have made it very clear that Israel needs to operate in all of Gaza. So when the IDF moves into southern Gaza, what is to happen with the population that's there right now?
Basically, there is an area west of Rafah and Khan Yunis this is where our settlements were, Gush Katif. The shore of this area is called El Muasi. It's quite a big area. And because it's not an urban area, it wasn't built too much, what Israel is saying to the whole society of Gaza, go to El Muasi, go to this area. There you can be safe. It's out of Khan Yunis, it's out of Deir el-Balach, it's out of Rafah. So basically they can all go there and there get their supplies, medical assistance, everything. And what I'm saying all the time is that we also must pressure Egypt to open the border and in a controlled way, let the women, children of Gaza go out to a safety zone in the Sinai Peninsula, because this will be the only place that will be really, really safe and out of war zone. But the world is not doing anything to really do the right thing to prevent a humanitarian crisis, which is enabling people who want to go out from Gaza to go out.
Does Egypt feel any pressure at all at the end of the day to help the humanitarian issue in Gaza, or they haven't felt any pressure at all since October 7th?
Unfortunately, I don't think that Egypt is pressured at all. And this is the ones who will suffer from that are the Palestinians. I think it's terrible that nobody is really pressuring them.
General, do you have time for more questions? I know your time is short right now.
Yeah, sure.
In terms of Hezbollah, is Israel able to defeat Hezbollah on its own, or does it require much assistance from the U.S.?
We are able to defeat Hezbollah. Hezbollah is much more challenging than Hamas. Hezbollah also, it's not like Hamas, that Hamas we can eradicate. We can conquer all of Gaza. It's not a big place, and destroy completely Hamas. This is something that we cannot do. We cannot conquer all Lebanon. It's a huge place. So putting a goal of war that says, let's eradicate Hezbollah, it's not really realistic. What we can do, as a goal of war is destroy Hezbollah forces in South Lebanon and do the biggest damage we can do to all other Hezbollah units around Lebanon. We'll have to deal with a lot of shooting. Hezbollah can shoot a lot of rockets and missiles towards Israel. So I work with them talking about home front command. That would be very, very challenging and different from what we are used from Gaza. But this is what we have to deal with. What can we do?
Is there a realistic concern that there would be a parting of ways between Israel and the US in this war, and Israel would be on its own?
A what?
That Israel would be on its own, that at a certain point the US would tell Israel, we've done all we can, and then strategically, operationally, Israel is on its own. Is that a real concern right now in Israel?
I don't see a scenario like that. It's not something I would assume will happen for a simple reason. Without Israel, the US will lose completely the Middle East. And the only anchor the US has in the Middle East is Israel, real one, that they can trust. So I think it's in the best interest of the US to support Israel in a way that enables Israel to win the war and be secure. And this will benefit dramatically also the ability of the US to be relevant in the Middle East.
One of our viewers wrote that Iran is repositioning forces north of Israel. Are you able to comment on the significance of this?
So the Iranians have a huge force in Iraq, 100,000 militants. They also have 2 divisions in Syria, one that is composed of Hezbollah units and another one of different Shia components that came from all over the Middle East. And yes, they're trying to move forces closer to the Golan, especially the southern part of the Golan, and also reinforcing Hezbollah in South Lebanon. And this is a challenge because we're talking about many forces that are getting closer to our border.
Again, thank you everyone for sending in all of these questions. Okay, in terms of Iran, do you think that Iran is waiting to strike Israel when we are in the midst of battle in Gaza or with Hezbollah?
The whole strategy of Iran is as much as possible to use proxies and not fight themselves. If Iran itself goes to war, it's very possible that this will make the US also react against Iran. So I wouldn't say that it's likely that Iran will want to shoot us unless we're talking here about Hezbollah entering the war. And then that would be a point that maybe Iran with Hezbollah will want to intervene. This is definitely an option.
What do you think Hamas is going to want to do in terms of the continuation of the ceasefire? What will they do with their remaining hostages in Gaza?
So they're moving the hostages all the time. After at the beginning, we managed to release one hostage. They reassess the way they're holding the hostages, and they're acting now in a way that makes it much harder to reach them. They're moving them all the time. And not by the way, now we know that not necessarily in tunnels, are holding them also in houses, in apartments. And they keep moving. And this, for us, it will be a challenge. By the way, there's a possibility that many of the remaining hostages are dead, not necessarily alive. We don't really know how many are alive.
Thank you for taking our battery of questions here. This is incredibly informative. Another one came in with regards to the UN in Gaza after this war. Can or should Israel try to block the UN from setting up camp again in Gaza once the war is over?
I think that when the war is over, we need to get rid of UNRWA. The Palestinians are the only ones that have their own refugee agency, which perpetuates refugee situation from generation to generation. That doesn't happen anywhere else. So if we want to deal with the issue of refugees, we must not do it with a designated organization for the Palestinians, but overall with the UN refugee agency. And UNRWA is the one organization that is really perpetuating the ideology and the idea of the Palestinians to go back to cities inside Israel.
Has Israel considered developing a capacity for manufacturing weapons here within Israel to have less of a dependency on the US?
I can say that in 2014, the Obama administration, when we were fighting in Gaza, we were in a situation where the administration refused to send us munition. And this opened a whole discussion about how big are the Israeli industries and their capability to produce critical ammunitions. And there were some changes made, I think not enough. I think that we definitely, as a national security way of thinking, we need that the main capabilities Israel has will be produced in Israel. Yes, on one hand, that costs money, but it's crucial for our sovereignty and also for our readiness. And we see it now how crucial it is in a war. And also, maybe it costs money, but it also brings money, because then you have many people working in the industry, gaining money. We'll probably be able to sell these capabilities also to other countries. Our industries are doing very, very well. And I believe that any investment in the industries of Israel will make more money to the country, not less. And it will be beneficial operationally.
Wow, thank you for all of this, for the rapid fire of questions and the answers on a very wide range of topics. As you mentioned in the beginning, we had a whole plan. We were going to bring a interview from Tal Shachar, who was a Gazan who converted to Judaism, and then we were going to have Danny Seaman come in and comment. But this was more important. Not that Danny's not important, but this was very critical. So thank you so much for sharing all of this. Thank you to all of our viewers for tuning in and for asking all of these really important questions. And I think we need to do this again, another just rapid fire session of questions and answers. Tomorrow, we will be back at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. In addition to Brigadier General Amir Avivi, we are going to be joined by the Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem, Fleur Hassan Nahum, which should be a very interesting conversation as well. So thank you so much to everyone for joining us. Stay safe. Stay strong, everyone. Take care.